Sometimes the scariest monsters don't crawl out from under your bed. Sometimes they come back, wearing the face of someone you love. What would you do if someone you buried came home, looking like your brother, talking like your brother, but wasn't? I grew up in the scorched heart of New Mexico land where the sun cooked the ground until it cracked and the nights stretched out, wide and hollow. Our home was a modest ranch house 20 miles from the nearest town. Just me, my father, and my older brother Jamie. Mom had died when I was little, leaving behind 3 men and his silence that never quite left our walls. Jamie was 5 years older, and to me, he was invincible, strong, level-headed, the kind of man you could trust with your life. If Jamie had once told me the sun wouldn't rise the next day, I would have packed a flashlight and braced for darkness. He was the last person I ever thought I'd question, until the night something came back pretending to be him. It started with the sheep. We kept a small herd in a pen behind the house. One morning we found one of them dead, its body shredded, not eaten. My father said it was a coyote. Jamie knelt beside the carcass, staring at the clean, cruel slashes in its flesh. "The cuts are too clean," he said quietly. "Coyotes tear and drag. This looks ... deliberate." That word stayed with me, deliberate. Like something had killed just to kill. No hunger, no instinct. Only intent. Over the next week, 3 more sheep died. Always at night. Always the same way. Then, one night, Jamie grabbed the old Winchester from above the fireplace. "If it's something more than a coyote," he said, "I'll deal with it." I watched as he stepped into the dark, the moon casting his silhouette across the dirt. The rifle slung over his shoulder caught the light for a moment. Then he vanished into the night. He never came back. I waited until dawn. Still no sign. My father searched the desert for 2 days, calling in some of his old hunting buddies. But there were no tracks, no blood, no trace. It was as if Jamie had been swallowed by the land itself. 2 weeks later, we buried an empty casket, held a small memorial, said our goodbyes, and then, 3 days later, there was a knock at the door. It was just after midnight. 3 slow, heavy knocks. Dad opened it. I heard his breath catch in his throat. Then a name, almost broken, "Jamie." I ran to the doorway. There he was, Jamie. He looked gaunt, hollow. Dirt clung to his skin, his eyes sunken like deep pits. But it was him. Same face. Same voice. "I got lost," he said. "Don't remember much. Woke up near an arroyo, walked for days." Dad pulled him into his arms and wept. He held Jamie like a ghost made flesh. But I just stood there, frozen. Something didn't feel right. Jamie had always been lean, but the man standing before us looked ... stretched, like his skin had been pulled too tightly over something underneath. His eyes darted too quickly, never quite settling, and his smile felt wrong, like someone trying to remember what joy was supposed to look like. Still, Dad believed. He made soup, gave Jamie clean clothes, tucked him into bed. I barely slept that night. Around 1 a.m, I heard whispers through the wall. Low. Raspy, like he was talking to someone. But it was only his voice. I crept to the door, cracked it open. Jamie sat on the edge of his bed, staring at the mirror, grinning. But it wasn't a human grin. It was wide, too wide, like a puppet mimicking a memory. And then I saw it. He blinked, but not like us. His eyelids closed vertically, like a lizard. The floor creaked beneath me. His head snapped toward the door. I ran. The next morning I told Dad everything. He said I was traumatized, that Jamie was malnourished, dehydrated, confused, but I knew what I saw. That night I locked my door and sat in bed with a baseball bat. Every creak in the hallway made my grip tighten. Then, at 2:00 a.m., click, the doorknob turned slowly. A whisper followed. "Hey, little bro, you awake?" I didn't answer. Silence. Then something slid under the door. It was a photo of Jamie and me from 2 summers ago. Our eyes had been scratched out. The next morning I demanded he take me to the arroyo where he claimed he woke up. He agreed, too easily. We drove for an hour across lifeless red earth, twisted trees lining the horizon. He pointed toward a rock near a dry riverbed. "Right there," he said. "That's where I came to." I stepped out, scanning for footprints, remains anything. When I turned around, Jamie was gone. "Jamie?" I called. No answer. Then I heard a whisper right behind me. "I don't like this game," he said, but the voice, it was deeper. Wet. Rotten. I turned and saw him standing 10 feet away, arms hanging limp, head tilted to one side, still smiling. And then his skin began to shift like something inside was trying to crawl out. His face distorted, melted, stretched. His eyes turned pure black. Then he lunged. I don't remember starting the truck. Only the engine screaming and the desert disappearing behind me. I drove straight to a Navajo elder, a man named Thomas Yazzie. I poured everything out to him. He didn't laugh, he didn't blink. "You're not the first," he said. "What you saw is a Yi-Nald Lushi, a skinwalker, a witch that wears the skin of others. It doesn't become them, it only imitates." I asked what to do. He handed me a leather pouch. "White ash, burned from coyote bones. Carry it, and if you ever face it again, don't run, don't scream. Speak its name, and whatever you do, never invite it in." When I returned home, the house was too quiet. I called out, "Dad?" No answer. Then I saw them small drops of blood leading down the hallway to Jamie's room. I pushed open the door. Dad sat in a chair, eyes wide but lifeless. His throat had been cut. Behind him stood Jamie, still smiling. "You never believed in me," it said, but he did. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the pouch. It hissed when it saw it. Its smile cracked. Its skin rippled. "I know what you are," I said, my voice trembling. "I know you're not him." It tilted its head. "I'm what's left of your real brother." I threw the pouch. The ash hit its chest, and it screamed. Not a human scream, something metallic, something that sounded like every voice it had ever stolen was shrieking at once. It collapsed, convulsing, shifting, changing, and just before it turned to ash, I saw Jamie's real face trapped underneath, eyes full of fear, mouth pleading. Then he was gone. We buried Dad next to the empty grave we had made for Jamie. I never saw my brother again. Not really, but some nights, when the wind dies and the house is still, I hear it. 3 slow, deliberate knocks, and a voice. "Hey, little bro, you awake?" I never answer, and I never open the door. I'm not sure if I should be sharing this or even putting it down in words. but I feel I owe it to myself, to whatever might come after me, and to anyone who finds their way up to Watchtower 13 in Blackwood National Forest. Because whatever I saw that night, whatever I experienced, is something I will carry with me for the rest of my life. I just want the world to know I'm not crazy, I'm not a coward, I'm not a man prone to imagination. I'm simply someone who stumbled upon something I was not meant to see. My name is Liam. Just Liam, that's all you need to know. I'm a lookout ranger for Blackwood National Forest, a solitary role, meant to keep an eye out for wildfires, poaching, or anything unusual. I was drawn to this solitary lifestyle after growing up in a bustling city and experiencing a profound tragedy, the disappearance of my sister under mysterious circumstances. This incident instilled in me a deep understanding of isolation, vigilance, and the necessity to protect both oneself and the vulnerable from the unknown. I'm not a greenhorn. I've been up here for nearly a year, following routines, noting wildlife movement, and keeping a careful record of everything I see. The view from my observation deck is majestic. Countless pines spreading toward the horizon, a wild and ancient landscape, a place where silence reigns supreme. The incident happened on the night of March 16th, just after a thunderstorm had passed through. I remember the rain glimmering upon the needles of the pines, turning the forest into a shimmering labyrinth of drops. The thunder had gone, the clouds were clearing, and I was beginning to prepare for a long night of vigilance. I turned up my small propane heater, made a cup of instant noodles, and turned the dial on my radio just a bit to cut through the oppressive silence. About an hour after sunset, I noticed something strange through my binoculars. A pair of orange-yellow points of light darting through the trees, much faster than a wolf or a bobcat, much faster than a human. I turned up the range, focusing in, and for a moment I saw something. A hunched silhouette, leathery skin, piercing luminescent eyes, and a form that seemed to warp and shift. The creature darted back into the thick underbrush. I tried to raise someone over the radio, but all I got was a chorus of static. I wrote it down in my observation notebook. Unknown creature, bipedal, vast, yellow-orange eyes, movement not matching wildlife. I stayed up in the observation deck, high above the forest floor, with the comforting barrier of metal railings and a locked trapdoor underneath me. I made sure to keep a sidearm close, a large-caliber revolver I normally carry for protection against bears or cougars, something I hoped I'd never need. Around midnight, the temperature drops suddenly by nearly 10 degrees. A freezing breeze moves through the pines, causing their branches to creak and sway in a sinister chorus. The clouds break briefly, letting a sliver of icy moonlight illuminate the clearing, adding an aura of unreality to the oppressive silence. I fell into a kind of restless stupor, not quite asleep, not fully conscious, when something made a rhythmic clicking, a kind of chatter directly above me. I turned upward and shone my powerful searchlight into the branches, a move I wish I hadn't made. The moment the beam fell upon the creature, I saw its face. Leathery, grotesque, its jaw opening much farther than a human's, a row of needle-like fangs glimmering in the reflection. The creature let out a piercing shriek, a bone-chilling, inhuman wail, then darted upward and out of view. My grip tightened upon my sidearm. I turned down all my equipment, radio, generator, stove, anything that made a sound, and fell into a nervous silence. I kept a corner of my small observation deck clear in case I needed a way down, a path of escape. The creature remained somewhere above me. I could hear its claws clicking against metal, its heavy body shifting its weight. I pressed myself against the corner, tried to control my shaking, tried not to let my fear dictate my movements. Then something fell through the hatch. A large piece of skin, human skin, a face, perfectly cut away, its features gone, its texture leathery and raw, a mask made by something that was not meant to be. I turned it over with the barrel of my sidearm and fell upon a wallet I recognized. Inside there was a photo of a missing camper. The person had gone missing nearly 2 months previously, a person I hadn't found, a person whose trail had gone cold. The creature was not just a creature, it was a monster, a skinwalker, a monster that was collecting human skin, adding it to its own form. All through the rest of that night I remained vigilant, sidearm in hand, not trusting a single rustling leaf or a fleeting shadow. The creature tried to confuse me, to mimic a human voice, calling up from the base of the watchtower, "Liam, Liam, come down, come down. I'm injured. I need your help." I forced myself not to move. I forced myself not to respond. I pressed myself flat against the corner of the observation deck until the first rays of dawn began to illuminate the world. When I safely made it back down to the ground, I chose not to linger or report the incident. I made a hurried descent and left Blackwood National Forest as soon as I could. The moment I got back to my truck, I turned the key in the ignition and drove away without looking back. To this day, the bone-chilling screams and the memories of that creature haunt me, creeping into my dreams and adding an icy thread of fear to my nights. Few wanted to believe me. Few wanted to admit something ancient and elemental might reside in Blackwood National Forest. All I know for sure is this: something is out there, something that is not supposed to exist, something I stumbled upon that I wish I hadn't, something I must live with for the rest of my days. Final note: the trauma I carry resonates profoundly within me, a permanent imprint upon my psyche, affirming my understanding that there are dimensions we do not fully comprehend, creatures that dwell in the periphery of understanding, and horrors that lie just beyond the reach of ordinary senses. I was staying at my grandfather's ranch for the weekend while he was away, looking after his 2 horses and making sure everything was in order. The ranch is a few miles outside the nearest town, a small place called Tularosa, surrounded by barren fields, scrubland, and clusters of pines. It's isolated, and normally I appreciate that kind of peace and quiet, especially after a hectic work week. But something about that weekend made me realize just how vulnerable I really was all by myself. It all started the first night I was there. I fell asleep in the guest room with the window slightly ajar. I liked the fresh night air. Sometime after midnight, I was awakened by a chorus of coyotes howling much closer than I'd ever heard them before. Much, much closer. At first I thought there might be a pack near the fence, but then their howling fell into something else, something more human-like, a chorus of voices imitating creatures that shouldn't be there. I turned off all the lights and pressed myself against the wall. I decided not to move. After a few minutes, the chorus fell silent. Then I noticed something else, a rhythmic tapping against the glass of the window. I held my breath, afraid to make a sound. The tapping was slow, deliberate. I turned slowly and peered through the corner of the window's blind. What I saw made me freezing to the bone. A pair of piercing yellow eyes staring back at me from just a few feet away, glowering in the dark. In the following hours, I kept all the doors locked and turned off the main power to avoid signaling that someone was home. The creature, whatever it was, tried turning doorknobs, tapping at the windows, and making its awful chorus of imitations. I stayed perfectly still, clutching my phone, ready to dial 911. The moment the first rays of dawn fell upon the ranch, everything fell silent. I slipped out quietly, locked up, and left. I'm not sure I'll ever go back there, and I certainly will be looking over my shoulder for a long time to come. Instead of peace, the following nights turned into pure chaos. The creatures grew bolder, making their presence felt more frequently. The ranch's horses grew nervous and unsettled, kicking their stall doors and snorting in alarm. The fence to the north fell overnight, adding to the growing feeling of vulnerability. I found strange prints, a blend of human and animal, in the mud, near the fence, and upon the back deck. The prints were much larger than a man's, yet not entirely a wolf's. The following nights I barely rested, constantly vigilant, wondering when whatever it was would return. The skinwalkers seemed to be closing in, slowly but surely, turning the ranch from a refuge into a nightmare. During the following hours, I began seeing its form darting just outside my view, a fleeting silhouette, a pair of glowering yellow eyes, a fleeting shape that seemed to move faster than a wolf. The fence fell further, a corner collapsing under pressure from something strong. The horses grew nearly wild with fear, and I grew less certain that I was truly alone. I made preparations to protect myself, placing locks upon locks and boarding up weak points. Yet I knew deep down that I was battling something much older, much more sinister, something I barely comprehended. The skinwalker was closing in, and I didn't know whether I'd make it through the night. The subsequent morning, I was finally able to extricate myself safely. The creature had gone, its oppressive aura lifting with the first rays of dawn. I departed the ranch after my grandfather's return. His reaction to my account was not disbelief or alarm, but a heavy, weary affirmation. His simple acknowledgement made it clear he knew something that I hadn't, a long-standing family tragedy stemming from the creature's last manifestation, which resulted in the disappearance of my grandmother 2 years previously. The creature, it seemed, held a significance I could barely comprehend. I was fortunate to have escaped its reach, yet I know something I should not know, something that will haunt me for the rest of my days. The skinwalkers are real, and their ability to blend in, to mimic, makes them all the more threatening and elusive.